Hi there, I'm Mike Shope. Welcome back to Wet and Windy Buffalo. ADP chasing coming your way. We had football that mattered in Week 17 5 days ago. The week was so spread out. Before I forget to say it, I'd like to thank the Houston Texans for their service to the best ball tournament community. We'll recap the week and the season. We'll talk playoff drafts, trends, and strategies there with the movement from Week 17. And again, we'll look ahead to 2025 because after tonight's game, we're all going to be wanting to champ at the bit for next year. I'm Mike Shope with our heroes, Pat Kerrane and Davis Maddock. This is ADP Chasing, December 30th, 2024.
ADP chasing is for when you watch ship chasing, you go, these guys are just football guys.
And the targets per outrun leagues, that's going to be really nice.
Actually, back in if it's Ashane.
Stare into our crystal ball. Close your eyes, all your entries are going to lose anyway.
Yeah, that's fair.
This is a Deuce Vaughn show.
It's anti-cabal. It's anti the best ball thought leaders. I'm obviously lying to some degree because, I have a lot of both of these guys.
It's the most disgusting pick you can make. But, man.
Before we get our hands too dirty on the season that's about to end, Pat, so a buddy of mine and I have been talking about going to Bills Patriots this week, and that's of course Lord Pete.
Why?
Week 18. Well, I mean, it's just kind of like for him, the 1 week he can do it. It's 10 minutes from home, and I've kind of wanted to see him, and I've got cousins there. So will we see Drake May?
Probably. Gerard Mayo seems like he just woke up from a nap and has to be reminded that he's the Patriots head coach. That's kind of the level of hands-on. I mean, he literally announced that they were gonna bench Ramondre Stevenson, and then he wasn't benched. And I think he just it was like an oversight. He's like, "Oh, right, we were supposed to bench Ramondre.
We're supposed to bench him.
They forgot. He is just it is unbelievable." Kind of the level of one of the things that they've talked about, making as a real indicator of success at the head coach level, because it's a different thing than being a defensive guy or an offensive guy, is attention to detail. That the best head coaches are obsessive in their attention to detail. Imagine Sean McVay forgetting to bench a guy after he announced he was going to bench a guy. It's just it's unbelievable. So I would, if I were you guys, if you're rooting for the Bills, you want to see the Bills look good. What better possible game could there be to go see them look good? They're going to look great. I know. The Patriots put up a fight last time, but I'm personally hoping they fully quit. They fully quit on Gerard Mayo. Get him out of there. There's an opening here, Patriots. Do the right thing.
I think you'll see Josh Allen for 3 plays so he can keep his starting streak alive, and then that's it. They've clinched the 2. Raheem Morris is on too to talk about attention to detail. I think to your last point, but. I don't know. When May got hit in the head on Saturday, I feel like that's it. Why would he come back in this game next week? You've got an excuse now, and now they have the number 1 pick, Davis, which was not expected with the Giants and Raiders both.
Shout out Drew Lock. Yeah. Good work from Lock. I mean, the Patriots are somehow going to bungle this. This is what they're going to do. They're just not going to trade the pick. They're just going to take Ted McMillan with the first overall pick and just not trade it. Just totally just not get anything out of it. Does that.
Take the guy they would have taken. Yeah.
Take the guy they would have taken at 4 and just take him at 1. Yeah.
Will there be a market, Davis, for that pick though? What kind of interest? We've had years like this where nobody really
this is why people on Twitter, man, they're like, dude, Cam Ward sucks. Shedur's terrible. You guys are living in an alternate reality, man. You can't tell John Mara, who just had to watch 2 years of Daniel Jones, Drew Lock, Tommy DeVito, and say, yeah, there's 2 fun quarterbacks. They got invited to the Heisman, and actually we're just going to take a tackle. We're just taking a tackle. You good with that, John? John Mara is he's 82 years old. He's near death. And he's he can't watch another year of this.
Yeah. And it also seems, so Cam Ward in my early past, he does not look good. I don't think this quarterback class. I'm with those people on Twitter. They're saying that this is a really bad quarterback class. I think generally people think it's a bad quarterback class. I was listening to Connor Rogers and Trevor Sikkema break it down, and Connor was being pretty candid that he's like, it's not my favorite quarterback class, but I do get the sense that people will talk themselves into Cam Ward, and that then there will be also some teams that are pretty into Shador too. So I'm guessing there is
kind of into. I'm kind of into Shador. I'm honestly like I'm open to it. I'm open to Shador.
It's major markets: Boston, New York, Vegas. I don't know. Some of the teams at the top might like the sex appeal of the whole idea, but
I think they also, you have with Vegas and New York, you have two teams that didn't address quarterback last year when it seemed like maybe they wanted to and it didn't fall their way. Like the Giants would have liked to get May, but they couldn't. The Raiders probably thought they were going to get Penix, and then the Falcons swooped in. So I think that extra year of wait, like as an NFL organization, you don't have like that long of a shelf life, and you can't. I mean, the Raiders might clean house. The Giants probably keep their guys, right?
I don't know.
You got to make moves, and ownership is not going to want to just sit around and throw away another year. They just threw away a year. They're not going to want to do that again. I think both those teams would like to have their pick at quarterback. Would be my guess.
It's the Giants and the Jets, right? I mean, the Jets have one more win, but they're hopeless too. What a team!
Well, what do you do if you're the Jets?
What a team! Holy cow.
The Jets are probably bummed that Drew Aller is back at school. They were like, that would have been nice.
Right.
Yeah. And Quinn Ewers is maybe going to stay, probably going to stay.
Do you do like a second round Milroe?
Oh, Milroe, dude, if Michael Penix is the 13th overall pick, I think Milroe probably ends up being a first round pick, right?
He ends up being like mid first.
He ends up going 17th overall to, yeah.
That's an interesting.
I think you're right.
That's an interesting facet of this. I don't know about you two, but so much of the draft discourse last year was, and we have 4 months to go, was like, no way Penix, no way Nix, first round picks. And Nix seems fine, and Penix might also seem fine. And next year you might have the juxtaposition of a considered weaker class, but what did this year prove, right? I mean, the league sort of is always looking back and what worked and what didn't work. 6 quarterbacks went in the first round, and one didn't play at all. Caleb Williams happened, but everybody else seems kind of exciting. And so that might justify what you're saying, Davis, like push guys up.
Well, I'll tell you something I learned. Corinne, you finish your thought first, because this is kind of a different point. You go first.
I think this was a really, really good quarterback class. Like Penix didn't like pop in a big way in my stuff, but Nix did. And then May and Daniels and Caleb. May was like just outrageous. And then those guys all look good. And who am I forgetting? Is that it?
McCarthy.
McCarthy looked fine. He was kind of at the Penix level, where Nix came out better than him, but they were all like, yeah, these are fine first round picks. Kind of like Shador kind of comes out at that level. Ward's actually a little worse. And so I could see like Milroe is all about draft capital. Like I think if he's a first round pick, I'm definitely into him. If he's a second round pick, it gets shakier. But I'm like, is this last year or is this the Kenny Pickett year where we had Desmond Ridder fall to the 3rd? We had Malik Willis fall to the 3rd. We had Howell fall to the 5th. Like, I need to know what the NFL thinks about these. Because if the NFL says, no, Milroe's a first-round pick, and Shador's like the 2 or the 1, and Ward's the 2 or the 1, then like, all right, they're going to start. They're going to get their shot. They're going to be like, I'm going to be like, they kind of look like a little Daniel Jonesy in their outlook to me, but whatever. Let's bet on the draft capital. But I'm very, very curious to see that if we get that stamp of approval, because it wasn't that long ago where the NFL was just like pass on an entire quarterback class. Kenny Pickett's the only first rounder.
So I'll tell you the big difference I think you have to have in evaluating Cam Ward and Shador and just quarterback classes in general is like, it's just not that bad to be 23 anymore or 24. Like it used to be basically huge red flag, like 23-year-old quarterback who wasn't good until his final season. That guy's bust rate is 100%. Like literal, just like guaranteed bust. Burrow was kind of the first one to break out of there, although he was better as a junior than like going back than we want to say he was. But Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix were like awful college quarterbacks. Like straight like I mean, Jaden Daniels had to transfer. Bo Nix was like at Auburn. Like we're just like watching Bo Nix at Auburn. Like this guy cannot quarterback his way out of a wet paper bag. So the NIL money and then the extra year of eligibility, granted from COVID stuff. I mean, Pat, we're going to talk about this when we start doing dynasty stuff for wide receivers. Like you just can't, a 4-year guy is not a 4-year guy from back in the day anymore. But also like the extra reps. Think about how many reps these guys have gotten compared to other guys. I think you see it with Caleb, right? I think you see the reps issue. I mean, the fucking sacks with Caleb Williams. I mean,
yeah, they're not good.
It's just like terrible. It's like, well, okay, at the age that Caleb Williams was doing that, Jaden Daniels was going like 4-9 at Arizona State, you know.
Yeah, and I do think quarterback, like obviously you don't want to be Brandon Weeden and be like literally 27, but like I think quarterback is a position where if you show that you can do it young, then I'm very excited about that. But if you're 22 versus 23, I don't really care. Like if you can do it, you can do it. I think it's one of those positions. Like it's such a high degree of difficulty to be an NFL quarterback, and if it takes you an extra year to put it together, and then you come into the league and you can do it, like great, you know. Especially for best ball purposes, like we're looking for guys who can play the position and aren't going to like fall flat on their face, and maybe they don't have like the highest ceiling in like 3 or 4 years compared to a guy who's like lighting it up as a 19-year-old in college, but like, so what, you know, we draft a year at a time. It's more of a dynasty thing, I think, when you think about like a guy's 22 versus 23 or 21 versus 23.
What else is always changing too, you know, like sort of how the position is being played. We had the too high safety revolution, and now we want, you know, somebody, even the Chiefs at 15-1. I mean, everything is efficient, short, here and there for most teams, same thing. And you have, if this even applies, Darnold and Mayfield and even Goff, you know, players who have, we'd all right now, I think in the league, we all kind of buy into the development is important, but we don't know if we as an organization can afford it. So we're going to put them in and rookie contract, and hopefully it works out. But you've got this second wave of, you know, 29, 30-year-old quarterbacks who look fine, even really good at the position. So all sort of pushing toward the overall point here, which I think is older is not a problem. And you have guys like a Lance who doesn't play at all.
It definitely is. It definitely, like, you would definitely prefer these guys to dominate college football at 19. It's just a very strong signal that a guy can play, but like, it's no longer, I think, disqualifying.
Yeah, that's exactly how I would put it. And I think in terms of the development, like NFL teams don't really develop players. Like players get to the league and they basically develop themselves, or they don't develop. Like if you show up to an NFL team and you're like, train me, you're screwed.
They're
That's
laughing.
not how it works.
Chase Brown and Andre Yoshivas had to go find, I just know because I talked to the guy who trained them, had to go find this guy. He didn't seek them out. The team didn't put him in touch with this guy. They had to go seek this guy out and go work out at his facility in the offseason. And the Bengals were like, oh, okay.
That's great. Nice. We're glad you did that.
That's great. Yeah, we're glad you did that.
Maybe we'll play you now. We weren't going to before.
Exactly. Literally. And it's crazy. It's like, I mean, think about, you guys should be dumping, because there's no salary cap on training. There's no salary cap. I think there is restrictions as to what you can do in terms of hours worked in the off season and things like that. But yeah, like, I mean, it's something a lot of boomers say about football that they're probably right about, but like teams don't practice very much anymore. And you definitely don't practice at full speed anymore.
But even like Tony Gonzalez talked about, like he did that. Like he was like, he realized, I think after like his first year or during his first year, that he's like, oh, like no one's going to teach me how to like do all this stuff I need to do now. And so he like had to go get someone to like help him do that. So it's like, are you a professional basically is a big part of it. And so, yeah, I mean, if you're like, I mean, not to vent about the Patriots again, but they're getting blown out. And like Javon Baker, like barely played in that game. Like they're not playing Polk. Like these guys are probably busted.
It is. Like, that's so funny that they're just playing like Demario Douglas, this like 29-year-old slot, born, instead of just being like, let's see if we got something here. Let's see if
we got anything.
Anything. Let's
see it. Like this is a preseason game now, and we're going to figure out if we should even have you on the roster next year. Like I'm not saying like if you play them, they develop into something special, but like learn about these guys at least. Like no, we're going to play to win down 30 points in a meaningless game in week 17. Like they're like anti-development. They would do what if you were trying not to develop players, you would do what these coaches do.
Given all that, thanks to Hunter Henry for his 0.0 in the fantasy finals and the 40-7 loss.
I know, God.
How about Josh Allen for this quickly? So I think the person outside of Allen himself that gets the most credit for his, if transformation isn't too strong, is Jordan Palmer, Carson Palmer's brother, who he went to work with, and it's feet and it's timing and it's sort of like growing up at the position. Because the Bills, one reason why I bet against Allen, like a lot of people did when he was drafted, is the Bills were, as you'll know, absolutely not the organization you'd want, a young quarterback prospect to land on. They just hired McDermott. They had 17 years in a row without a playoff season. Like they were anything but. There was Rex Ryan and ground and pound. They were anything but a forward-thinking team. They get to Daboll, who comes in with play action all the time, and they make that work. But Allen has to go through him, and it does. And suddenly he's great. So another guy maybe in this category, even on his level.
Josh Allen was such a shitty college player. It's like really unbelievable that he became who he became.
He does some of the stuff I look at that's like looks at fantasy, fantasy potential. He actually does pretty well because he threw a lot of deep passes. He had like a lot of big time deep throws. Did like stuff that's really good for fantasy between. Some plays he'd want back and stuff. But,
he just had no.
He always had a lot of fantasy potential.
He had no feel, and then he got feel, which is just like very hard to do.
Yeah, right. And it wasn't because Sean McDermott like sat down and like trained him.
No,
he got an outside guy, which is what all these. I mean, Tom Brady had an outside guy. These guys all have their guys they work with.
I don't actually know this. Does Mahomes have an outside guy? I have no idea.
I don't know. God, could you imagine if he doesn't? Then maybe the problem is he doesn't have one now.
Jake State Farm is the only guy I can think of. Ever see him hang with? He's the only guy. I think he's.
Dude, he was an athlete's kid. Like I'm sure he's had like the same quarterback coach forever, and we just don't even know anything about. He has to. Yeah.
I would like to spend some more time on quarterbacks, but I wouldn't want anybody watching or listening to think that we're just not going to talk about the season as a whole. Now that it's almost over, either of you guys want to tell us where you stand here going into the final game?
Broke.
Well,
it didn't. My final teams are not going to take anything down. Shady Vice, who helps us out at Legendary Upside with the sidekick and everything. He is in the 5-5-5. I think if like Jahmyr Gibbs scores like 70, then he'll win that. But otherwise,
all right. Too bad they don't need the game.
Yeah, but Mike, I did want to say, really appreciate everything you're bringing to the table as the new host and everything. But pretty disappointed we don't have a Tee Higgins slide this week.
I know. Tee Higgins becoming a meme and then being the guy you absolutely had to have in
the must-have player in week 17.
Yeah.
I appreciate you prefacing that with a compliment toward me, as if I have anything to do with any of it. But I appreciate the sentiment there. Yes, that worked out. The Bengals were like maybe the story of the league in fantasy and best ball this year. All of it, right to the end.
Yeah.
The Deep End Invitational.
Let me tell you.
Yep.
Chase Brown injuring himself to avoid scoring a touchdown. If I could just kind of gif my season, it would be my most drafted player that I had on every finals team, 3 dynasty finals, 2 home league finals, injuring himself, removing himself from the game that went to overtime so that Tee Higgins could get more fucking points. That'd basically be my season. I mean, I I was out at a bar with my wife and her friends, like at a birthday thing, and I'm just like fuming, and I'm trying to explain to my wife what happened, and she's like, "Don't be an asshole. Like it's not that big." And I'm like, "You literally don't understand what just happened. You don't. I just got a nuclear bomb dropped on me."
You hate it.
Oh, man.
You hate these things too. We're all used to it, but when they're just really dumb, like if the Bengals kicker doesn't miss the previous kick, like that's just it. Maybe they kick then if he hadn't just missed one. And you have the Falcons last night who don't go for two and they still get the ball back and decide not to use timeouts, which made no sense. And that sets up for Ertz. Same final score, both games, overtime, covers for the favorite with touchdowns that really.
It's a tie game. Just score the touchdown, Chase. It's a tie game. Just score the touchdown.
He hasn't had a lot of practice sliding by the looks of it.
No.
Did want to note that if a Colts tight end had 3 touchdowns, that would have been even better.
Will Mallory didn't play in that game yesterday, so there was a chance it could have consolidated to only 4 guys.
That would have been too good.
Congrats to anybody that's killing it. I'm in the ship chasing Discord, and a lot of the people in there are new to me. But are you guys seeing anything in there where tonight could get exciting?
Yeah, the guy who finished 3rd behind Corain in Best Ball Mania 3 is currently winning the Puppy 3, Charlie.
Nice. Okay.
And
nice.
He is fading, I think, like reasonable games from Lions guys, but not like locks. So, a lot of ways. One of the guys in Pete's Discord is winning the Eliminator right now. I think he's fading 9.2 from Kittle to ship the Eliminator.
That's close.
My stuff. What's really good is Corain did get Zach Ertz to a final after spending the last 9 months. I did get Zach Ertz to a final with Jaden Daniels. You want to know my running backs on that team? Samaj P. points are counting. Samaj P. outscored James Conner. Chase Brown, Rico Dowdle. I mean, it's the slappiest slapper room of all time. Chase Brown, Rico Dowdle, and I got Justin Jefferson through to every final as well. So shout out to him for scoring less points than Xavier Worthy. Xavier Worthy outscored Jamar Chase in the 3-week sprint. Just by the way,
I have a team in the flock. It's the flock 4, I think. I think it was the only one I did with Barkley and Jefferson and Mahomes. And we're sitting a cool 81st out of 100 here going. But I have Pearsall down by 90. So you never know.
It is funny. Like, so if you think about ADP this year, like what was kind of the biggest, I mean, probably why Tee Higgins became the meme that he did, other than Sam's D paid for him, is that like we're drafting wide receiver 2s before running back 1s, wide receiver 2s on their own team. It is funny that like Devontae Smith and Tee Higgins go nuts in week 17. Saquon Barkley,
Jalen
Naylor. Yeah. So like obviously the running backs are going to move up in price and Saquon will be very high. But like, it did feel like a week 17 that sent us back to our respective corners at least a little bit. I think the whole playoff sent everyone back to their corners. A little. I think the running backs were too low and they'll move up. But I don't know that they move up much past where they were in 2023. What do you guys think? The big difference, Corain, is going to be that the Kamara Connor analogs, the old guys those guys are expensive again. You just are not getting, like, assuming James Conner comes back to the Cardinals. It's expensive. Oh, I think like 4 or 5 turn for James Conner.
And we'll all have none of them.
Oh, yeah, I'm not super none. Like
Nixon,
like somehow I will have less of the old guys next year if that happens than I did this year, in a year where I also had like none of them. Like, it's just because Derrick Henry and Josh Jacobs, although these guys like literally mattered none in the fantasy playoffs. So like just because these guys ran hot on rushing touchdowns for one season doesn't mean that they're not 29 anymore. Derrick Henry is going to be 31 next year, and he is going to go ahead of where he went this year. I'm sorry, dude. I can't do it.
And there's McCaffrey to consider.
McCaffrey, yeah. I think I'm back in on McCaffrey because you're gonna get a discount on him. Obviously he's not gonna be the 101, so by definition. But I think you get is he gonna be at the 1-2 turn? Where does McCaffrey go? You're taking Bijan over him, I think.
Bijan is RB1, I think. And man,
yeah, you're right. I think he probably is RB1.
Last night wasn't that game. He's going to run for 250 yards. Every play is 8 yards downfield, untouched, and then they stopped. Great.
I don't get it. I needed a Bijan game to win my home league for the first time ever in 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
So it was good. I mean, I've got good room. I'm up 40-ish with Goff versus Laporta and JMO. So I'm pretty good, but I would have liked more Bijan, obviously. I do. McCaffrey is pretty interesting though, because the same thing that is he's going to be an old guy. The only thing that really differentiates him from Henry and Barkley in terms of the age range stuff is that he catches passes and he gets every touchdown. I mean, it's so funny.
And he got this year off.
He did well, kind of. Yeah. The funny thing is the Barkley thing is hilarious, man. Barkley is going to end up scoring fewer fantasy points per game than Dalvin Cook did in Dalvin Cook's really good season. And he's going to break the goddamn rushing record. And he's going to average 22 points per game, which is just it won't
be quite that much. I think he might be 21. It's a little, I don't even know. What is it like? Because he doesn't really catch passes. And then he's gotten, if you're getting sniped at the goal line or vultured by Kenny Pickett,
who had to take a pain-killing injection in his ribs at halftime, and they still ran the tush push, and Kenny Pickett had broken ribs.
Back to back after he got ruled down when he was in on the one play, all right, I'll get away with this. Nope, same thing. I mean,
obviously it's frustrating, and Barkley is way good enough to take those plays himself, and it feels like it shouldn't be happening. But was there any reason to think it won't happen next year? So
no,
we talk about
literally
Barkley,
none. Literally,
obviously
none.
He was a smash where he went this year, but when he goes up into the 102 range, because I agree with you, Mike. I think Bijan might settle as the 101 ultimately. I mean, no one's going to be anti Bijan. It might take a minute, but I bet he gets up to the 101, and then Barkley maybe 102.
There's no way. You guys are giving the community way too much credit.
You think he's just locked in 101?
Barkley is not only is he 101. You know how on Underdog it's 1.2, which means sometimes the guy doesn't always go for 1.8. Oh, he doesn't know. He's going to be 1.01. He's going first I obviously assuming he doesn't get injured or anything. He dude,
who is going to be if this is a question I can ask, who is going to be making that argument in this space for the next 6 months or 8 months? who is going to be pushing Barkley? Because this point you're making to me seems pretty obvious. I don't know, why would I want him over Robinson?
I don't think I would be taking. I would just take Bijan. If you're telling me I can get double Bijan next year, I think I'm doing that. I mean, I know I wouldn't say that's what everyone should do or anything, but my personal stuff, if I could, and maybe I go not double, but if you're telling me I can get extra Bijan and he's not, because he's not the 101, he's the 102, let's say. Gibbs, people are also making the case. I mean, I think depending on where Montgomery ends up, Gibbs is in the conversation too. And then these wide receivers are all very attractive. So I don't know. I mean, Barkley is going to have his backers, but I would push back that he's going to be the locked in, no one ever goes ahead of him 101. Because who's making that case?
I don't know. It's not going to be you. Well,
it's not going to be me.
I would say I want to get back to quarterbacks here, guys, if you don't mind. So I was watching Mike Clay yesterday morning, And he made a point about next year's drafts on Fantasy Focus. He's like, all right, who's the quarterback 6? And so he played it out. We're looking at this year. The top 5 quarterbacks were pretty chalky. Ultimately, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Burrow, Jaden Daniels wasn't chalky, but he gets into the top 5. Mahomes and Murray, disappointments at 10 and 11. I went through the whole league this morning and counted how many teams I think we have 100% certainty we know who their quarterback is going to be week 1, 2025. I count 23 teams. This is more a point toward the rookies topic from earlier, but I've got 10 in the AFC, not including Indianapolis or Pittsburgh. There's at least some uncertainty there. NFC, I think the only 3 teams in the NFC where we don't know who their starting quarterback next year will be are the Vikings, I think, and then New Orleans and the Giants. Last year, we had the Cousins speculation and what'll happen with Justin Fields, and then the Steelers. Then you had 6 first-round rookies. There just are not a lot of openings this year, which is one part of the point. To try to tier these guys for next year with the chalk quarterbacks, because it was a New Year's resolution point, Pat, on Fantasy Focus, where Mike made this point, and he said his resolution for next year is to draft a top 5 QB, because after 5, who knows? Does that feel right to you?
No, that seems terrible. It seems like
Really?
the exact opposite way to play it. That's like the worst way to play fantasy is, I feel uncertain about this thing, so I'm just going to get warm and cozy in my top 5 quarterback blanket.
You're not leaning into the uncertainty, are you, at all?
No,
I think
you want to lean into the uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
to an extent. I mean, I think with best ball, like, you could say like, look, Daniel Jones didn't really hurt you that much. He did enough to get you there. But like, I had a team with Hurts, and it crushed in week 16, except Hurts gets a concussion, and my other quarterback was Kirk Cousins. And that team makes, if Cousins just starts that game, and then I have a quarterback in week 17, because obviously I wouldn't have done anything because I didn't have a quarterback. But if we're drafting 2 of these guys, one of them could get hurt at a bad time. If the other guy has gotten benched in the single week elimination / final weeks, it does really hurt you. If you're doing a 3 quarterback build, it probably, you may need to worry about that less. But in a lot of cases, you're taking one of these guys with like an elite. If he has any bench risk, it can be a disaster. It can cost you the potential to go to a final, which is what happened to me.
And Cousins always had that. He always had that risk.
He did always have that, which we knew. We knew that. And it was kind of, with Cousins, it was difficult because it was sort of tied to him playing poorly. Like,
right.
And so you kind of lost anyway. But, he had some games this year that were pretty good.
500
really
yards.
good. Yeah.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers merchant. Mooney's a
Bay
Buccaneers merchant.
Confirmed.
But Cousins is for sure a Buccaneers merchant.
So yeah, but then he throws for 500 yards in the season and gets benched in that season. I do not, especially next year, with like a quarterback class that I do think is both not very good and not very fantasy friendly. Outside of like Milroe has a good fantasy profile, but he's like erratic and could get himself benched. And who knows where his draft capital is. So in early stuff, I'm not going to be super excited about him.
Is like less athletic, less accurate Richardson. Like it's
Right.
gonna be rough. It's gonna be a rough watch.
So I think, to me, I do kind of have a line, but the line is much later than that. Like, I love looking at like guys like, Goff, Baker, Jordan Love, Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert. If Sam Darnold were to be back with the Vikings, although if they keep McCarthy, that gets a little risky. But I would be interested in him. Purdy, then Nix and May, like that group. Geno, I think, unless they bring in somebody, but like
Young.
We saw Bryce Young is that's a little shakier because he was so bad at times this year. Stroud, Lawrence, Stafford, these like pocket passers with job security. I think Tua as well. You got the concussion concern there. He could miss a big chunk, but the pocket passers with job security, I want to be like done. Whereas last year I did take a lot of May. I was taking Nix. You could do stuff in the late rounds at quarterback where you're like, I'm getting late season upside and jobs. These guys are safe to start and they have upside. This year, like, I don't think that the rookies have that much upside. I'm not going to be opposed to entirely to taking them, but like, yeah, I know Cam Ward like takes shots downfield and everything, but it's not like a super fantasy friendly profile. He's probably the guy I'd be most interested in, but it's just a very different setup from like the players that were getting injected into the league, So I just want to make sure that I'm not taking on Richardson, right? Don't give me Richardson's bench risk is going to be massive. I still think Bryce Young still has significant bench risk. Like any of the guys who could actually lose job, like dudes who kind of end up as starters, like this year's Minshew or 2025's Minshew type guy who falls into a job. I don't want to have like any of that guy because it's like the chances of him holding the job for the year are so low.
How care to quantify that bench risk on Bryce Young? Didn't they sort of make it work, but maybe not well enough?
Made it work to 9 straight losses is how I would put it. How much is that? I mean, you're going to learn a lot. You're going to learn a lot about Bryce based on who else is in the quarterback room with him. Is it Andy Dalton again? Is it Joe Flacco? Did they take a 3rd round quarterback? Did they take Jackson Dart? They take Jackson Dart with the 97th pick in the NFL draft, So I think interesting.
Okay. Young looks a lot better than he did earlier in the season. And the comment here, Bryce Young doesn't have bench risk just because he was benched this year. But like, yes, he does. Like that, like a guy, the fact that a guy, if you're thinking about who's most likely to get benched, a previous benching would be like a good data point to keep in mind. Like this coaching staff has given up on this is the same coaching staff, and they've already given up on this dude for a stretch. And it took a car accident to get him back on the field. And he looked a lot better than he did before. And there's optimism going into this year. But like we're always optimistic entering a season. That's the way it works. And like it feels a little legacy to me now, where it's like, yeah, we're going to give him the year. And,
Yep.
But by the end of the year, they'd just be like, this isn't working. We're losing games. Like it's a 3rd year of this guy's career, and we've won 4 games. Like we're gonna, give the backup a shot with whatever dude they bring in.
It's the right point. Winning is the right point. They have 1 regulation win since week 3 or something, but they gave up 558 yards yesterday. I don't know. I'm intrigued, but there's so many interesting names there, and they're kind of really hard to rank, right? What is Justin Herbert next year? I mean, we have to see what
if they get Luther Burden and they sign. I haven't started to look at who the free agent wide receiver class is, but if you replace, Darius Davis and DJ Shark and Josh Palmer with guys who can play, Will Dissly, who is a converted defensive end, is his tight end, like no disrespect to Will Dissly, but like, I think Harbaugh already kind of passed the biggest part of the test for Herbert's fantasy value, which is sure, young man, you want to like, we'll do what you want to do. We are not going to force you to run the wing tee, like the Chargers in the second half of the season being top 10 in PROE would have not been on anyone's bingo card. No, they invested nothing in their running backs. So like that is maybe something you could be concerned about. Like what if the Chargers are the G&T team? Chargers could be I don't think there's any reason the Chargers couldn't be the G&T team. That would maybe give you pause a little bit. I'll tell you one thing though. Boy, am I really hoping that Mahomes, like I hope the Chiefs win the Super Bowl playing boomer ball, because there will be no return for me. I will just run this year back. If he looks great and they look great and Worthy looks great and he's the quarterback 12. I mean, there's just no way that I will not be in on that. And I'll just have to do this whole experience again.
And after quarterback 12, I mean, he's great. He can pay off quarterback 12.
I don't know. Not the version of him this year cannot pay off quarterback 12 because he doesn't run. They don't throw deep at all. One of Hopkins or Hollywood will not be on the team next year. I think internally they'd probably like to keep one of them. Yeah, I don't know. But quarterback 12, Mahomes. I mean, my God. I just
Yeah.
Right now, that's Caleb on my list. Quarterback 12 for this season. Total points. You want Tee Higgins? If I want to sort of hold my own and make a Tee Higgins point, put him in LA.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's a Patriot. The Patriots are giving
He's a
him they're giving him $160 million.
He's going to reset the quarterback market.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. He is going to get just due to happenstance, just kind of the way things are playing when he became available, the teams that need him, the teams with cap space, he is going to get paid. I mean, he might legitimately get like Justin Jefferson money. I'm really not even kidding. I'm not.
No, I
It's gonna
think
be
you're
insane.
right. Yeah, there's several teams that really desperately need him. And I mean, the Bengals completely mismanaged the situation to not even have Chase done yet.
They don't even have
Crazy.
Chase done. They're going to have to pay Chase an extra $8 million a year just because they didn't get it done. I mean, unbelievable, this team.
It's crazy, man. It's so funny.
It
I mean, it's
will
not
be
funny because it would be nice to have them keep this together, but
It will be an interesting, I think we've talked about this, AFC playoff, where it not being so clear where the top teams have wide receiver one, elite wide receiver one, who's wide receiver two. Cincinnati almost definitely won't make it. Buffalo is all over the place. Kansas City is a little bit all over the place. Turning to the playoffs and these drafts, what's different? What have you guys noticed? I know you're drafting, I think you're drafting a lot. What's changing in there? You've got Minnesota now with a look at the bye, which I think maybe we mostly weren't taking seriously. Tampa is back on top of Atlanta. That probably flipped last week. And maybe you were drafting Tampa cheap last week just in case they would lose this game to Washington, Atlanta, where they were underdogs. And I wonder about Baltimore, too, getting the lead in the AFC North, where people already, whichever of these you might want to start with, Pat or Davis, where people already buying the idea of the Ravens, even though it looked like they could start the playoffs on the road.
Baltimore is the most overvalued team relative to their Super Bowl odds in the whole thing, which is not to say you shouldn't pick them, because if you're going to draft 150 teams, you got to have exposure. The funny thing that's happening now is basically all the hope. There's no hope. It's all. There are 3 AFC teams that people want to draft. There are 4 NFC teams that people want to draft. No one wants a Texan. No one wants the Steelers. I guess people kind of want the Rams and the Buccaneers just for wild card week advance rate
Rams
stuff.
Are fun.
Like just
really
for the
fun.
points. Yes, Sack is making a very funny point, which is that you can actually get Bills players whenever you want now because they haven't looked good on national TV in 2 weeks, despite like things like actually improving for them.
On DK, because there's so many Bills, I built a team yesterday or the day before where I did like Josh Allen, Justin Jefferson, Josh Jacobs, and then I got like
All
Aaron
Bills.
Jones later.
Yeah.
But I just pushed the Bills. I kept doing fun stuff, and then at the end I got like Ty Johnson, Mac Hollins.
Knox.
I think I got like Amari and Coleman and Knox. Yeah, Knox was a priority actually because I didn't have Kincaid, and that has tight end. But I was just like, by the time you get to the Super Bowl, that's 1 of 6 to advance over on DK. It's like if I show up to the Super Bowl with like 6 Bills and a starting lineup of 6, I think I'm pretty live. If they make, like, even if it's not Packers or Vikings,
It's also probably the likeliest it's been for any of these teams that haven't gotten a bye this whole time. I mean, they're almost the betting equivalent of the Chiefs, with the Chiefs getting to play 1 fewer game and have home field. So
yeah,
Buffalo has been the bet. If you thought we didn't know until Christmas Day whether Kansas City would lock down the 1. People were still betting against that going into that game in Pittsburgh, but now we know. And so the Bills will play almost definitely Denver in the first round. I mean, Denver wins against the backup Chiefs, and that's that.
Man, I don't know. It's like a real funny thing is Kansas City. Would you rather a shitty team that has no chance of beating you in the playoffs get in? Or would you rather beat them and then make your 2 biggest rivals have to play the most annoying team?
Well, the rest of that is if the Bengals were to win in Buffalo, then they would get the Chiefs, or the Chiefs would get them. Like you'd have to play them. Too.
Yeah, you don't want to set yourself up for Bengals round. Your round one.
The Bengals are so extremely unserious. They are world records for unseriousness. This organization. Like to be frank, famous last words maybe. I'm not that scared of having to play the Bengals. The Bills are way more terrifying than the Bengals are, and if
I don't agree. The Bengals can put up points. They're similar to the Bills, where they can put up points. Like, I know you can put up points against them, but like that's not really what the Chiefs are doing right now.
I don't know, man. I just like Burrow just like takes these awful sacks. Like these sacks with Burrow. I actually looked this up. I wanted to tweet it, but people know I'm such a Bengals hater. I didn't. The last 3 years, the only two quarterbacks who have a worse sack rate on third down than Joe Burrow. Just guess. It's the two funniest names you can imagine.
A worse sack rate on third down.
It's not going to be Stroud then.
Justin Fields.
Funnier than Justin Fields.
Christian Hackenberg.
No, dude, it's Russell Wilson and Bryce Young.
Oh God.
Well, that's kind of always been a part of the Bengals thing. Remember Burrow talking about that on a podcast a couple years ago?
Yeah, and he lied. I remember Kevin Cole looked up. He's like, "Oh, well, actually, I don't do it if we're in field goal range. I only do that if I'm trying to keep the play alive." And then you watch him play, and you're like, "Dude, you literally just got out of field goal range with this sack. I just watched you do it." Kevin Cole looked it up. It's neutral. His cross the 40 and outside the 40.
That's so funny because on the broadcast they'll just take him at face value and be like, he knows when to take sacks.
He knows the situation. He's a real smart guy, Joe Burrow. Real intelligent quarterback. He's just kind of always one step ahead as he takes another sack. As he takes another terrible sack.
He does okay though. He still does okay.
Real out of character there from Joe, taking them out of field goal.
It is. It's the
Davis.
It's the uncharacteristic sack there, which was like the old uncharacteristic drop from Edelman, where it was like he just does it all the time.
Leads the league in passing yards and passing touchdowns. I think they're scary. I think the Buffalo butt, so to speak, is takeaways and turnovers because they are basically first in the league in both, fewest turnovers and most takeaways. And you never know, you don't know how to predict this, but you get to the playoffs, the pass rushes are a little better. Allen never gets sacked against the Jets and the Patriots and most of the teams they play. And they've just been so right in protecting the ball, and they've taken it away like crazy. And that's just not going to be as likely in these postseason games against good teams. So that's my biggest concern with the Bills. I think they're a little bit built on that turnover luck, both sides of the ball this year. Doesn't mean they're not easily draftable for 4 games in these tournaments. I mean, they're absolutely the team they've been like sort of the most obvious team of all time.
Davis, you say the Ravens are pretty overpriced, and I felt that way like a couple weeks ago. Now, obviously, they took the 3 seed. When I really felt that way, it looked like they were going to be
when they were going to lose the
road games
to the Steelers.
Right. But they moved up significantly in price. Lamar's like the 102. That part of it I'm like fairly okay with because quarterback dries up so quickly. So it's like you're not being the guy who gets locked out at quarterback if you take Lamar at 102, and that's nice. But it is like Josh Allen to me feels a lot stronger. And I know he's the 101, but it feels like a big drop off. And I still think I like Hurts to be the guy who kind of storms through.
Well, why don't we take
the NFC
team?
without a
Why don't we
bye?
take the quarterback from the team that's favored to win the conference at 2?
Which guy are you talking about? Goff or Mahomes?
Mahomes, I think.
Well, I mean, I think there's an equal argument for both. I agree that Allen, the combination of having the wild card game, being a great fantasy point scorer, clearly being a team that can beat the Chiefs and having good conference championship equity, like he should clearly be the one. But in the Davis Maddock mental math rankings, I think Hurts is the 2 and Mahomes should be the 3. That is my opinion.
What about
I don't really.
Darnold?
I mean,
Well,
Darnold's a pretty good pick.
He's steaming up. Here's the issue, Mike. I might have already drafted 200 dead teams because I took the Vikings as my I took the Vikings as my backdoor team. I took my Vikings as give me some wild card points, buddy.
Yeah.
Well, you could still get there. They're a
tough.
3-point underdog in Detroit. You can still get there.
Man, that's gonna be a hell of a game. What a high stakes regular season game. My brother's a Vikings fan. He's like, this has got to be. I mean, he's like, it has to be basically the highest stakes regular season game of the Vikings franchise history, probably Lions franchise history.
It's the first week 18 game or final week
Most wins
since to determine the 1 seed since the 80s.
Wow.
Okay. Most wins ever in a finale too. They said that last night. Green Bay sitting there at the 7 at Philadelphia at 7-2 in the first round, and then Packers and Lions or Packers and Vikings for the third time. Green Bay, didn't they go 0-2 against both teams this year? We saw what happened last year with the Packers. Kind of interesting.
I think Packers are a good. I mean, Jacobs is expensive now, but not like crazy expensive. It pairs well with like the 101, 102 stuff. There's lots of Packers receivers to take. They cover buys if you want to do the Chiefs.
I'm done.
Packers.
I'm like taking Jordan Love, Tucker Kraft last 2 rounds if I need it. I watched Matt LaFleur called a delayed handoff on 2nd and 10, down 2 touchdowns at Minnesota, and I was like, you know what? If this guy wants to be serious, he's got. First off, he called the delayed handoff for Emmanuel Wilson as well. Not even Jacobs. Not even the engine. Not even the guy who's like the best or whatever, It's
a setup. They had nothing to play for. They were down already. It's a setup. Watch out. Be afraid for Green Bay if you're drafting Philadelphia or whoever. I think LaFleur is really good.
Purple Yosh says, Love kind of proven that he's overrated here, and it's been a disappointing season for Love. But like Love, a lot of the reason that it looks disappointing is because of volume. They don't drop back.
Right.
Like if they're forced to drop back, or if they're, to your point, Mike, if they're playing a little bit differently in the playoffs, then I think they could surprise. Love was so good last year, and if you look at like efficiency, even an EPA per game, he looks pretty good. But EPA per play is pretty very solid. He just doesn't have a lot of plays, and it's hard. It's always hard when a team has an identity built around the run, and they just brought in Josh Jacobs and they feed him, and he's played very well. So most likely scenario is that that's who they are. But if they were to lean on the pass a little bit more, it'd be fun.
I think a fun long shot team is the Chargers. It's a narrative based thing, but if you buy into like the Ravens playoff failures, that might be your 6 versus 3. And McConkey is likable in these things. Yeah. I didn't get a chance to say it before, but when we were talking about Chargers Patriots, and we'd come off, I think maybe just then the Bryce Young point, like beat somebody. Herbert, I liked New England as a bet in that game, west to east, early on Saturday, and he's like, I'm not losing. I'm sorry. Like he was really good in that game, and that's what everybody has wanted from Justin Herbert is, you're talking about the coaching staff. All right, here. And he's like, fine. Josh Palmer, here you go. Johnston, guys that nobody thinks are good. Here you go. McConkey is always open, and it was New England, but I mean, it was 40-7. So they'll have the Raiders this week and be pretty well positioned for the 6 or even the 5. If Pittsburgh loses, they move up and play Houston. I might think they'd be favored in Houston. And then it's the Chiefs who they play all the time, and it was one play this year. I could talk myself, I just did, into LA Super Bowl.
Their wide receiver 2 is Quentin Johnston.
Yeah, but they are well coached. I was skeptical of Greg Roman, and I think, it is a little disappointing to have a guy who's not like super aggressive with Justin Herbert, but they've definitely been less boomery than I was worried they might be.
Greg Roman year 1. Greg Roman year 1. That's always what you want, Pat.
That's true. Yeah, he's decent in year 1. But yeah, I mean, Harbaugh is a good coach, so you have that going for you. And yeah, Herbert's really good. Like taking isn't that the Bill Simmons thing? You take the best quarterback in these playoff games. You're getting a good quarter. You're getting a better quarterback when they play the Texans. Unfortunately, Stroud does not look like up to Herbert's level right now.
Well, as we wind down here, I just want to quickly mention one of my favorite leagues this year is a league that I completely ripped off the idea from the guys at RotoWire about 8 or 10 years ago when I started getting into fantasy football, and that's the Stake League, as they called it, where you had 12 guys. Anybody out there, you're welcome to, I recommend this as a concept. There's no entry, but you have a 12-team draft, and then the next year, middle four pay for their own. Everybody goes out to dinner together. Middle four pays for their own. Bottom four pays for themselves, and the top four. And so it turns into a pretty big night. And there's no you don't see it in your account here when you win, but I'm excited to have been in the top four in the Stake League. I think that's a really fun way. The next year you draft and then eat. You draft and then eat. So it's
that's
a great
awesome.
night.
That is a very cool idea for a league.
You would like for posterity to see the number up at the top change, but it doesn't.
True.
Do we have time to briefly jump back to the quarterback thing and talk Caleb Williams? Because I'm very curious about how you guys are thinking about him next year.
He's dynasty quarterback.
My head is in the sand. My head could not be more in the sand. I'm hoping that Ben Johnson is the head coach of the Chicago Bears, and I will simply pretend the bad rookie year never happened. I won't read any of Scott Barrett's tweets, and I will just keep buying.
I would say with the Scott Barrett, because he's had an accuracy and sack avoidance, a couple metrics there. He was like the worst ever that they had, which is obviously not good. But when you look at something like EPA per play, which is a bit more holistic, he's bad, but he's not nearly as bad. And he's much, much better than like a Zach Wilson or even a Bryce Young meltdown season from last year. But I mean, it seems crazy to say, but does he have bench risk next year in a Bryce Youngian kind of way?
Not if they hire like a fancy, like if they do like
a Canales type, like a Dave Canales type.
Not Pete Carroll, you mean?
I mean, first off, I think
that's what the Panthers did. They brought in the guru.
First off, I think you're being unfair to Caleb. I just think that is my opinion. Not a widely held opinion at this point. The YouTube chats, all various YouTube chats, have totally turned against Caleb Williams. So this is very brave of me to be.
I think I'm being fair by pointing out that his in the most predictive metric, he's bad but not horrendous.
So I think the bench risk is going to be much higher if they hire an Eberflus type. If they hire a defensive CEO type, then absolutely. If they hire,
which they can't.
By the way, Andrew, in the chat about Pete Carroll, Adam Schefter literally responded to that article and said it was bullshit. He said, not happening. No Pete Carroll for the Bears. The Bears wouldn't do that anyways because the Bears don't want to spend a bunch of money on a coach, and Pete Carroll would want a bunch of money.
How could Ben Johnson take that job?
I mean, Shope, you don't want to be the second fiddle your whole life, man. He doesn't want to just be the offensive coordinator at the Lions.
No, I agree. I think he'll be a head coach, but he got away with the gambit this year. They might win it. That helps. And then to go from Detroit to Chicago, the quintessential place where offense goes to die. I mean, I don't think I would want to do that. I think I'd want to be. This year worked out for him, although we could have had Daniels, but somewhere better. That's nothing against Williams either, but I think he could probably do better.
Here's the deal: just the YouTube chat, they're not football guys. They just don't know. They just don't know that Caleb is him. They just don't know he's good. He's a good player.
I don't know if he's him. I think his him odds have cratered.
His him odds. They're like half of Jaden Daniels. That's the thing. That it all is worse in comparison because Daniels is just like so clearly him. Just like so clearly franchise quarterback, change the whole direction. He's him. Capital H, capital I, capital M. And so it makes Caleb look worse.
Dynasty startup. Is he top 10 quarterback?
For me, yes.
No, I don't think so.
I think it's close. I think that's the line right there.
I need to. So
The guys in their
Allen,
late 20s, you're
Lamar,
taking.
Daniels, Burrow, Mahomes.
I'm about to go send some trades right now. I'm about to get in the lab. I've got first to spend. It's a terrible draft class.
I would take May over him in Dynasty now.
Herbert.
The call is coming from inside the house, Patrick.
But is that even controversial? Like, he just looks like May can play the quarterback position at the NFL level, like, for sure. His supporting cast absolutely sucks. His coaching sucks. It's probably going to suck next year. But, like, what concerns do you have about him is, like, can you do it? Caleb is struggling with stuff that, like, ends careers. This is what ended Fields' career, really. I mean, as a starter. Like, he takes too many sacks. Like, sacks kill careers.
You guys got to go see Darnold in the locker room after that win yesterday. If you didn't, like, how are they possibly letting him go after this season? Maybe they'll be.
People are going to be really mad when they do let him go. I predict that'll be the most people get mad about something in the NFL this offseason when they say, "Sam, thank you for your service."
I can't see him doing it. We'll see if they win rounds. That would maybe settle it, but. New Year's this week.
I think
Davis,
you have to franchise him. You have to franchise Darnold, right?
I think that's the correct move. Yeah.
How do you guys spend New Year's? I know, Pat, you're out east here with your family, right?
We're flying home. That's our big New Year's plans. Is flying back to California and picking up our dog from the sitter and then being at home. So nothing.
In theory,
the least crazy thing ever.
If you had a late night flight, you could, have Happy New Year like 3 times on that flight.
Yeah, you could take the red eye.
That's true. Yeah.
If you plan it right. Davis?
I gotta go do some shit out of the house, which I hate. I really do. I'm such an indoor cat these days, but I'll be out and about. The Blues are playing in the Winter Classic, so it's like a big bar day. I actually wanted to go, but it just didn't work out. We didn't have anyone to watch our puppy, and she's a handful. But
no doubt you got to see them lose to Buffalo yesterday.
Oh, I don't care. I don't care about the Blues. I like the Avalanche, but it's just like a thing around here.
Sure. Wrigley Field. The Winter Classic is a win when they put it on a Tuesday at 3. When it's not a holiday. It's a fun event. The first one ever was here. It's one of my favorite sporting events I've ever been to. What do you guys have coming up today or this week in terms of content?
A lot of playoff basketball. I'll be live immediately after this, actually, so the people get redirected right there.
Yeah, plus we're gonna do a stream tonight, kind of a sweat, but also drafting playoff basketball teams over on the Legendary Upside YouTube. And then later in the week, once I'm back home, we're gonna do a bunch of playoff basketball stuff. I'll try to link up with you, Davis, and do some content as well.
All right, cool.
Yeah, playoff basketball. We got the sidekicks cooking over on DraftKings and Underdog, and draft. I think this is the week I'm gonna try to get in like the most volume I have so far, as I finally get some time to get in the lab and not be doing so much family get together stuff. I can actually draft. So I'm very excited to draft a lot of playoff.
You can see the gleam in his eyes. Davis is afraid to go outside. He's dreading it. Here's Pat. I can't wait to get away from my family and start drafting more.
I love the family. It was nice to see them, but not too many drafts. That's the downside.
That's okay. We all love your family. I'll be on WGR in Buffalo in less than an hour talking about the Bills situation and the playoff picture. Eric Wood, one of my guests today, Ross Tucker tomorrow. That's on the Odyssey app. Happy New Year, guys. Thanks to everybody for watching and listening. We'll see you next week here on ADP Chasing.
Yep. And I'm going to pull up the outro later.